Hello and welcome to a new episode of Lead Yourself First, the podcast. It's the third episode, and today I'm very excited to have a new wonderful human being with me. She is known as the System Girl on LinkedIn, and believe me when I say I learned so much over the last year from her. And the one thing that I learned from her that helped me the most was making my calendar my non-negotiable. So a warmly welcome to Noor Barrage, and yeah, just welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing really well. I'm very excited for our conversation. We were saying before we hit record how it's so fun to meet people in real life or camera to camera who you've been
Yes,
interacting with for such a long time. So yeah, I'm very
true.
excited for the conversation.
Oh, wonderful. No, no, it's really nice to have you here. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit? What you're doing? What is your business about? Because, this podcast is always about mindset, self-leadership, about mental fitness, but always in combination with your business. So how do you face certain challenges that can come up with, yeah, being busy, being a founder? So if you like, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been in business now for it's coming up to 6 years. I
Wow.
think it feels much longer than that, but 6 years almost. And I was part of a business for a very long time that I had helped build from the ground up and sat in different seats. My main thing in that company was I was the operator of that business. And in
Okay.
October 2024, I decided to take a step back and set out on my own venture. And it's been an incredible ride, an incredible experience so far. I feel very, very lucky, very blessed to get to do what I do and to get to work with all the people that I get to work with. And I have quite a what is still unfortunately a unique take on work and life and how those two things work in tandem with one another. And I would say my main ethos is I believe that you can build an incredibly successful business and a brand without sacrificing yourself, your relationships, your health, your well-being in the process. And how we do that is through systems and structure. And that's what I talk about.
Perfect. I mean, you have explained everything in detail so much, which explains also why I love following you and reading your content on
Mm.
LinkedIn. So I think we quite think alike when it comes to that
Yeah.
all that topics about being a founder, building a business without sacrificing yourself. This is those days, I think, you know, it's more important than ever, especially when we keep in mind that we're living in the year of the fire horse, where everything just goes faster and faster and faster.
Yeah.
So Nora, I have, as usual, three questions for you. And my first one would be that, you talk a lot about founders being stuck in reactive chaos, kind of, right? So
Mhm.
what do you think is actually going on beneath all of that? So is it really a system problem, or is it more a self-leadership problem first, in the first case? What would you say?
Um, I think it's both, which
Okay.
is the not clear answer. I think it's a bit of both. I think self-leadership is such an interesting phrase. And it's something that is really, really important when you look at business. We all have a responsibility to lead ourselves first. And only through doing that in the best possible way can we then look to leading others.
Yeah.
And so self leadership is definitely part of it. And I think the way that I see that self leadership is looking at how our own behaviors and tendencies where those behaviors and tendencies come from. Do
Okay.
they come from how we believe we should be leading? Do they come from how we have been told we should be leading, how we should be operating. And that's where I think the systems piece comes in. So we've all been taught almost innately, just by virtue of growing up in the world that we have today, that there are certain things that are really normal in not just the business world, but just the working world as a whole. It's normal to feel really tired. It's normal to feel really exhausted. It's normal to um, feel reactive. It's normal for our attention to be split in, multiple different directions. And to a degree, I think the majority of people have just accepted that that is the way, and that
Okay.
there isn't another way, or there isn't maybe a better way. And I think as leaders, we really need to question that, and we need to
Hmm.
look at things critically and go, maybe there is a better way. There must be a better way to do this. There must be a better way to operate. There must be a better way to exist so that we can lead better, because no one can lead the way that we want to when we are forced to sit in reactive spaces for long
Yeah.
periods of time, which is where most leaders sit.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think we really have normalized this kind of behavior because, and of course, also those beliefs, these inner beliefs we all have right now. And just as a side question, do you think it has something to do with our education, or how we just grew up through our parents? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's oh, that's such a good question. I think it depends on the education system is like a broad term.
Yeah.
And like, I remember I went to a very unusual school, a primary school. So in the UK, that's from the age of 4 till 10 or 11
Okay.
years old. And I remember this school was really unusual because we were taught to push back and ask
Hmm.
questions.
Oh,
And if
nice.
things didn't make sense, we were taught to critique and go, but why do we need to do this? Why is this the way that I'm told it should be? And
Oh,
I think that's
wow.
really, really unusual, because more often than not, the education system, as my partner was saying to me the other day, teaches us to be really good workers, to sit and be
Yeah.
quiet and follow direction and not question things and just go with the yeah, go with the status quo. And so I think I grew up with this belief that instilled in me from a really young age, that if something doesn't seem right,
Hmm.
push back, and
Okay.
maybe there's a different way to do something. And
Nice.
that's really unusual. And I realized how unusual that was when I went to university to do my bachelor's. And I remember sitting in a philosophy class, and the professor had said something. I can't remember exactly what it was, and I just said, I don't agree. That doesn't make any sense to me. And the gasps in the room, the like looks of horror around me, just again reaffirmed this idea that most people find it almost like rude and disrespectful to look at someone in an authority seat and go, actually, that doesn't make sense. Can you explain? But that's what we should all be doing. We should be questioning these structures. I ask clients, if this doesn't make sense to you, push back.
Yeah.
When I post something that I believe to be more controversial on LinkedIn, on socials, I'm always encouraging people, if you don't agree, push back. Let's have a conversation. Let's make, maybe I'm in the wrong and I'm deluded. I don't think so, but maybe. So let's push back. Let's ask questions. Let's be really critical. And I think that's how we get closer to structures and ways of working and ways of living that make sense for each of us, not just this umbrella of like, this is normal.
I really love that approach. I really, really love that approach. I mean, when I grew up in East Germany, it was forbidden to disagree with anyone and everything, So there's a status
Yeah,
quo, so
wow.
please respect it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, perhaps don't know, perhaps you have noticed it, you read it through the lines in my content, but I have a little rebel heart. And it was always complicated for me, especially as well for my parents, to deal with that
Yeah.
and with me. But at the end of the day, yes, this is how we innovate, I think, in
Yeah,
my
absolutely. And I think your background must be so interesting as well, because as you said, it probably gives you this additional layer of, oh, we grew up in a world where, we were not allowed to question. This was how it was done, and this is
yeah,
how it was done. And then,
yeah,
yeah, it's super interesting. You
yeah.
should write more content around that.
Okay, perhaps perhaps I should do that. It's a good thought. I will keep it in mind. Um, no, you're writing very often that growth shouldn't feel like our nervous system is constantly fried, right? So, but actually, this is
Yeah.
what happened. So, and I think many people can relate to that. So, how do you personally notice when you're yourself, really yourself, slipping into that kind of reactive mode, or what do you need to reset when you feel like you're driving away?
Yeah. Um, that's a really, really good question. I think I I've been doing this for a while, and I think I'm getting a lot better at noticing when I slip into reactive spaces, simply
Hmm.
because I have stopped being able to function how I want to function when I'm in those spaces. So
Okay.
typically, um, I'm a person who likes to move things forward, and not busy work, but like moving closer to my goals. And when I sit in a reactive space for too long, it means that I don't have the space and energy
Hmm.
to focus on the things that are going to move me forward. And I start to feel very lethargic. I start to get quite snappy, which isn't
Oh.
naturally how I am. So that to me is like indicative of something is going on. And I start to get really tired, and I sleep a lot. Like I recognize right now, we're still coming out of winter in the UK, and I sleep between 8 to 9 hours. That for me is really, really normal. But I start to need a lot more sleep when I sit in reactive spaces, because I find it very energetically draining, and it takes a lot out of me, and my creativity stops. And that's something that I've noticed recently, where if I am in a reactive space for too long, my my creativity is not it essentially just stops. Like I don't feel creative. I find it really hard to write anything other than like reflective pieces. So for me, those are the indicators. In terms of what I do to mitigate that or stop myself from getting, because ideally what we want to do is pre-handle
Hmm.
the reactives, the moving into reactive spaces. I reflect daily. So every
Wonderful.
day I look at my calendar, I look at my to-do list, I ask myself how the day felt. Did I do work that I enjoyed? Did I show up in a way that I feel really proud of? Um, am I happy for how I showed up for my clients, my team, my loved ones, myself? What did I do for myself that day is important as well. Did I move my body? Did I eat? Did I eat well? And I kind of assess the day as a whole, and that's a really big part of my like wind down routine. And usually that allows me to catch things. So if I didn't eat well, if I, ate more junk, if I didn't move my body, if I was not happy with how I showed up, I'll like dive deeper and like sit with that and look at why, what was it that meant that I didn't show up in the way that I should have or wanted to, or both. Um, and then I will make sure that the next day I focus on that thing and doing better. So that for me has worked really well. I think reflection is such an underrated thing. Most
Oh
people
yeah.
don't do it because it's uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable to do it properly. And really sit there and ask yourself those questions can be really challenging. But I think the more you do it, the easier it gets to sit down and do it. Not that it's never easy, like it doesn't, it's not an easy activity. But I think it's really, really beneficial. I think more people need to work on being self-aware. And if we do that as leaders, as I'm sure you agree, I think the world will be a much better place.
I just wanted to say thank you very much that you have said that at the end, being more self-aware, because I think your approach is so adult. I mean, really adult. This is really, I love the inner child, no problem about that, or no worries, right? But I mean, this is really something to sit with yourself and questioning yourself, to reflect on what went good, what went well, where I can optimize, where I should catch my triggers, where, and so on and so on. I mean, it's a huge field, but like you said, all transformation or all optimization as well, or a reset in your case, like because of my questions, starts with that, everything. So
Yeah.
awesome, wonderful. And thank you very much for sharing this, because I mean, this is it's quite a personal question. And I think everyone watching and listening to this episode will honor that. And I hope everyone will take their piece out of it in order to use it for themselves. So this is my biggest hope. This is why this podcast exists. And no, thank you very much. That was in depth, really.
No, I'm very glad. I hope it resonates with the audience as well.
I hope so too. So Noor, let me ask you one more question. You know, what I have noticing because of your content is that you're really challenging the way we have been taught to work and define success. I mean, the two of us are doing this through our content and how we work with our clients, right? So, but if someone is chasing growth, but constantly feels overwhelmed, you know, so I mean, this happened to a lot of founders. So, but what would be, from your point of view, the mindset shift they should take or need to take first before any of the systems you would recommend would actually work?
I think the first thing that we need to acknowledge is that growth is always uncomfortable, and growth and a part of being uncomfortable is to a degree feeling overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a reason, or let me backtrack. I think something that's really important to come back to is understanding why you are trying to grow. What does that
Okay.
mean to you? And why is that important? And the reason, and maybe I'm biased because the lens that I'm looking at this through is through my experience and the work that I have done and I do with mainly CEOs and founders. But
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes when I speak to leaders and there's this feeling of overwhelm and we kind of talk and dive into this, the overwhelm comes from trying to move towards a goal, usually growth, usually revenue driven.
Mm-hmm.
That is not something that you really want. It's
Okay.
something that you are taught to want, or that you feel pressured to want. So to give a tangible example, uh, in the online coaching world, which I came from, there was this obsession with 100K a month. That was the
Okay.
number.
Okay.
And first it was 10K. And once you hit that, the next goal is 100K, which is ridiculous because, like, what a massive jump.
Yeah.
But that was the goal. And I would work with a lot of CEOs who were in between that massive range. So they were maybe 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, but whatever. They were trying to get to that 100 grand goal.
Mm-hmm.
And they were really overwhelmed. And one of the things I asked them is, why is it that you are trying to get to this goal? And they were like, well, because, that's like, it's important. Like, that's our revenue target. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Why? And they would be like, well, like, we want to grow the business, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, great. Why? And kind of like, when you sit down with a child and they ask you, why is the sky blue? Oh, the sky's blue because blah, blah, blah. Okay, why? And it's like a never ending spiral. And then you're like, I don't know. Um, and we kind of get to this place where a lot of people don't know why they're working towards certain things.
Yeah.
And I think for me, whenever I've felt any form of overwhelm, if I can ground myself in my why, the overwhelm feels less overwhelming. And sometimes it is, and that's okay. Like, overwhelm isn't a bad thing if you are moving towards something that is meaningful for you. But
Yeah.
I think that the thing that a lot of people trip up over in the online business world is because of social media, because there's so much comparison, because everyone has an opinion about how you should be doing what you are doing. I get told all the time, oh, you have to do Twitter. Why are you not on X? And I'm like, because I don't want to be on X. They're like, oh, but you have to, like, or there's
Yeah.
this new funnel. You have to launch this new funnel. Okay, but that's not in my plan. So I think if we can ground ourselves in our why, and we have a really strong why, um, whenever you feel overwhelmed, you can come back to that and ground yourself, and it makes things a lot easier. It also means that you are moving towards a goal that is actually yours, and you are growing in a way that is your path, not someone else's path. And that for me has made the biggest difference in the world. It also means that you become really good at identifying what is not your goal, what's not for you. And you become very good at being able to say no to people and things that come your way. And you just have more focus. And I think that is part of reducing the overwhelm as well, is in this space where we're being told, do more, publish on this platform, do this, do this, do this. It can become very, very overwhelming. But if you know what you're working towards and you have your clear trajectory and you can stay focused, the overwhelm you feel is just pressure, and that pressure is not a bad thing.
Wow. Wow. Love that explanation. This is you have something mentioned something very, 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 very important to me, and this is about the why.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's always I have the same little saying for myself: do what you love and love what you do, and success will fall into place.
Mm.
I'm not sure how you think about that, but for me, it works exactly like this, and this is why I feel for myself all the time very grounded. So that
Yeah.
overwhelm cannot happen anymore because I'm not a money chaser. I know that it comes anyway, one way or the other, you know. Even though I have my, let's say, targets, but their second position. My why is always first position. So
Yeah.
therefore, this is, I mean, I really like how you are so, let's say, let me call it stubborn, asking your clients all the time, again and again and again, the why, because I feel like, well, it's exactly what I did to my mom all the time. Asking questions until she sent me into the
Yeah.
library.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, no, it's really like this. We have to get down to the bottom of everything in order to find out why really people need to want to do things. And if money is the goal, from my point of view, I cannot help anyone, because money should never be the goal, in my perspective. How do you, as a little side question at the end, how do you think about that?
Yeah. I think that's a tricky question. And
It is.
I think My disclaimer is, I understand that, like, I'm in a privileged position where that, like, money does not need to be my object.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also been in a position where, for the most part, and again, this is why I said it's such an interesting question, because I don't know which one came first. So when I mentioned before, I left this company that I had helped build
Mm-hmm.
in October 2024, and I left as in I gave my notice. The next day I was gone. Like, I
Wow.
didn't have a plan. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have clients. Like, I had no idea what I was going to do. Um, and like, my partner will disagree, but I'm quite, I think, a financially savvy person. And so I
Okay.
had, I had like a savings, I had a cushion, I had whatever.
Yeah.
But I never sought out money when I went on my own. And
Right.
I did fine. Like, I within a week I had my first client. It was someone who I worked with for 9 months. Very a big person in the space. We got on great. I felt very lucky, but I never approached that as, I need to get this contract. I need to. It was someone who I cared about. I'd connected with at an event earlier that year, and I felt like I could really help her. And we had a very vulnerable conversation about how she felt, where her business was at, how burnt out she felt. And I was like, oh, like, this is such an easy fix. Like, it does not have to be this way.
Yeah.
And the value was there. And
Yeah.
so it was a really easy, natural decision. But
Nice.
I've never pursued money as like the why.
Yeah.
And like, it's great. Money is great. Like, it's how we, live in this world, and how we can do
Yeah.
all of these great things. Um, but I think a lot of people get it wrong. And I think if we were more concerned with leading with value and figuring out innovative ways that we can support others and making their lives better through service, through products, through whatever, and that was like the guiding,
Yeah. Yeah.
way, we'd be in a
Get you.
much better spot than we are now in the world. So yeah, so I don't know. It's a really, I feel like we can, talk about this for hours
It's
and
quite
hours.
it's quite philosophical. It's quite philosophical,
Yeah.
actually, to be honest. Yeah. But anyway, thank you very much for your opinion on that.
No,
For
cool.
me, it really it gave me a lot. So thank you very much, and I hope everyone watching as well. So Noor, thank you very much really for your time. It was such a pleasure having you here, talking with you the first time, and I hope really everyone who was watching, listening, got something for themselves out of it. Hopefully, it will be transformative for some people here. And yeah, no, have a wonderful day. And thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. And I would say, see you in the feed.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's been so fun, and thank you for having me. And yeah, I hope it's helpful for everyone watching or listening. And yeah.
Thank you. So thank you very much for everyone who was listening, who was watching. And the next episode will come again, probably in April, May. Let's see. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and thank you very much. See you soon. Bye bye. And don't forget, lead yourself first. Ciao.